famous traders or fund managers that are buying gold at the present time that you know of?
You know, there was that time when Pimco was heavily invested. I sort of remember, you know, all of them buying when they did buy, but I think a lot of them, they've certainly been very quiet on their position on gold recently, and few have been talking about increasing their holdings. So I think I'd have to answer that I'm not aware, with the exception of some of the central banks. And you mentioned the Russian Central Bank earlier and the People's Bank of China, and that I'm fairly certain is still a net buyer of gold. So it seems to be, for investment purposes, it seems to be the central banks. I do know that retail, there's quite a lot of retail interest, and it tends to be coming from the individuals in creditor nations. So Germans, for example, very keen on owning gold on a PA level. Still a lot of interest in China, a lot of interest in India, despite government attempts to try and wean the economy and retail investors off gold.
Do you think British retail investors are sort of falling out of love with it at the moment, or are they just, you know, cannier than the rest of the world? They just buy when they think it's good to buy, rather than it's not sort of a natural asset, is it?
I think it was once very much a natural asset. If you went back pre-1931...
That's what I mean, but it doesn't seem to be as much.
I think, yes, I think you're right. I think it has waned as an asset in our psyche, presumably by one more generation than in America. I think, you know, the link was broken in 1971, so the one generation closer to remembering that benchmark that they had. And now we all obsess much more about our houses, don't we? Are they cannier? Well, they would have to be cannier than our government or our Chancellor of the Exchequer when we contrived to sell, what was it, half our gold holding, or near as get out half our gold holding right at the bottom of the market in whenever it was, 2001. So they could hardly be less canny than that. I think there is a general shift. I think there is a general shift from interest in gold away from the West and towards the East. And I think actually you can probably, I say that in almost the same time as I said the Germans are buyers of gold. What I think is happening is it is a shift away from countries which are debtor countries, like the US, like Britain, towards the creditor countries such as China, such as Germany in particular, and of course Japan is still a very large creditor nation as well. So they might fall into that category, although I think the extent to which Japan is increasing its creditor nation status has slowed down a lot, whereas it's still clear that Germany and China are accumulating reserves. So, and that, I think you could interpret that in a more general context of the shift of wealth from West to East. And it's quite an interesting study to do, actually, if you look at average wages in a particular country and you relate it to how many ounces of gold that is. And if you do that, you can see how, I've done it for America, but you can see how neither governments nor individuals actually would very much like to see their wages in that way. We like to think of our wages going up every year. Measured in dollars, by and large they do, but if you were to measure it in ounces of gold, you would find a very, very different pattern indeed. And I doubt now, but I don't know, but I doubt now that the average American worker earns as many ounces of gold as his counterpart did in 1971. So that is possibly a reason why not only governments, but sometimes individuals want to cast off some of those benchmarks. There's a well-known thought experiment which is conducted, which I think demonstrates a predisposition in the world actually towards inflation, and that's if you ask a person, would you rather your salary stayed the same and prices doubled, or prices stayed the same and your salary halved, which would you prefer? Everyone goes for the salary stays the same and the prices double, despite the fact that those two things are, or very nearly everyone, despite the fact that those two things are effectively the same. People appear to benchmark themselves against not an absolute like an ounce of gold, but they prefer to benchmark themselves against a relative, such as what did I earn last year.